You start. Pass around.
No, yeah. All right. Great. Let's rock and roll. So I think if everybody's okay with it, let's dive into the Boy Scouts quick. That way, if you don't want to, you don't have to sit for this entire
That'd
meeting.
be great. We've got a dog appointment at 5:20. That would be wonderful.
All right.
Ooh, more people coming.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
We got some more chairs.
Welcome.
Just two of us.
All right. We barely had this many people at council meetings on alone and a committee meeting.
How you doing?
So, yeah, let's, yeah, there's a chair right there. We can pull it right around and you guys can be right there. So, yeah.
I don't bite.
Is somebody remote?
No, it is recording, so we don't take minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Excellent, good idea.
Wasn't my idea, but I like it.
I was gonna say lazy.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good idea.
So man who doesn't volunteer to take minutes. Alright, so we're jumping into the Boy Scouts thing, so. Does everybody know everybody around the table?
You know,
Okay, I think we just go right around quick, that way, yeah, so, Brian,
Brian Frederick, Chair of the Cub Scout Party, the Scout Troop.
Bob Sinclair, President of OHS Historical Society.
I thought you were meaning the high school for a minute there.
Former life.
Okay.
Yes,
I know,
that's that.
Sarah Marks, town councilor.
Zach Turner, Finance Director.
Leo Kenny, town councilor.
Jacob Baker.
Clint, town manager.
Mark Lena.
I'm sorry, what was,
Mark Lena.
Mark, okay.
And remind me, what's your association with the Boy Scouts?
None.
None, okay, perfect.
Glad you're here.
I knew you were at your last Boy Scout meeting we had,
Yeah,
so.
I come along for the ride.
All right.
I enjoy these
He
meetings.
was,
Wow.
he was committee chair before I was scout.
That's right,
master,
okay.
And he is still
Scout
teaching
master.
first aid merit badge.
A lot of things.
Can't get off that easy, Mark.
Alright, so at the last council meeting, we decided to continue moving forward. On the divestiture of the firehouse to the Boy Scouts through KCI. KCI has a meeting tomorrow to discuss and I believe approve this. I don't know if they'll get to the formal approval, but just discuss it. I ran into Glenn last week and he didn't see any issues with it. I will be there on behalf of the council, more so because it's right across the river and it's convenient for me to go, but anybody else is willing to go. As well.
Specifically, what time to be there?
3:30 at Just Catering. Yep.
We've been trying to reach them.
Oh, okay, yeah, so 3:30, yeah, yep. So in the meantime, Clint, our attorney and us, I suppose, are working on a memo / deed restriction language to put into the transfer. So today I was hoping to spend 10 minutes talking about kind of some of the things that we all collectively wanted into it. I got an email from James Garrity at the Historical Society, and the three things that he said, all items that we talked about before, is that the building shouldn't be demolished by Boy Scouts or any other owners of the building. Ownership.
More
of the
than it
building-
already is.
Oh, exactly. Ownership of the building shall be to a nonprofit with a sublet to. If there's a sublet to a nonprofit, no for-profit entities will be allowed to occupy the building. And then the third one, no alterations to the exterior of the building. I agree with that. I got back to him and said, that makes sense to me, unless they're required from a structural component, in which case I think that. You know, we can't make alterations as long as it's understood that the contractor, whomever, does their best job to put it back as it was, from a visual standpoint. So those are the three things that I'm going to start with, and as I copy them into my notes here. I guess, what are other thoughts, what are other items that we should be considering?
Can I just ask about that?
Yeah.
No alterations to the exterior. That seems very broad.
Well, and that's why I think, I mean, we will have to modify this language. And I would like to see something in there that, no alteration to the outside. Unless they're structurally necessary, or I guess,
But I'm thinking like, what if they wanna put a window somewhere, or what if
That's a
they
good
wanna
question,
change the
yeah.
siding? Do we wanna stick to like, don't change, no vinyl, no aluminum, maybe, something like that, I
Yeah.
don't know, but that's just. Cause I could see, well, it'd be handy if there were a window here for passing out stuff or whatever, and that shouldn't
or
be
maybe
prohibited.
even ironically, something that needs to be done and bring it up to fire safety code. Which
Mhm.
again, is
Yeah,
ironic.
because we need
Fire
a
station, but-
means of egress here or something like that.
Do you have a sense of
Yeah.
what are the external architectural features that are important to preserve in that building?
Well, let's back up a little bit, okay? Our interest, when I expressed an interest in the building as a historical society, I think it's very appropriate that we do our best to communicate with the town and others about the historical significance of buildings in our community. We are delighted that the Boy Scouts have an interest in this property. We toured it, our executive committee and some other members earlier this month, before everybody got sick with the colds. But we toured it, Megan let us in, and we walked around and spent some time. And obviously, the building needs some work, and I procured a copy of the community needs assessment that you did on the building. We just wanna make sure, we would hope that the town would support us when it comes to having conversations like this and letting us be part of the conversation. Because this is the only historically significant piece of property that the town now owns, so. As we move forward with our society, okay, we wanna do our best to protect the integrity of a building like this. As you all know, it's a pristine example of a late 1800, early 1900 fire station, horse and buggy fire station that was built exclusively to serve the residents of Orono, the Webster side part of Orono, during the logging boom and the pulp and paper business and that stuff. Many of the homes that were there, one of which I was raised in, Leo spent some time there, were built for people who would work in those components. So we've all kind of agreed that it's not our place, I don't believe it's our place to tell the scouts exactly what you're going to do with the building. We hope that this sails through. We just would like to have some assurances or feel a little bit better about the fact that it is historically significant, and that we'll all do our best to maintain that. So I don't feel as though it's our responsibility to put a laundry list of things interior, exterior wise. The interior of that building is pristine. The exterior, the bell tower is still in good shape. The hose tower is still in good shape. There are gonna be things that you folks are gonna be dealing with. It's kind of outlined in your, in the report here from Haley Ward. For each property that was included in the survey. Talk about minimum fixes, the old fire station, okay, mid-level fixes, and these are all, they have monetary pieces attached to it. Maximum fix, and then the old fire station cell, that's the one that we kind of said, okay, hold on a minute, we should have it. We should be part of this conversation, and you folks seem to have, or somebody who did this report seemed to have laid it out pretty well.
I don't know, have we seen this?
Yeah, I sent it around after our first meeting, it's
It's a Haley Ward report, correct?
Haley Ward
Right.
report of all town facilities, of which some.
Yeah.
Like a year ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
but in option number 4 on this, Sal goes, the town not gonna divest itself of the old fire station property either by selling to the scouts who indicated an interest to own the building. And then it goes, or to another entity, and then it says the building is historically significant, which we all agree upon. In a residential neighborhood, so covenants with the purchasing entity would probably be needed to assure that the building would be cared for properly. And that the new use is appropriate for the setting. So I think we're talking about the same thing here, again, the Boy Scouts have been a great tenant to that building for 100 years. I
1930.
was a scout in the old Troop 47 briefly, and spent some time learning how to tie knots and build campfires and tents and cook out to Jim Keene's property out on Kelly Road. So, yeah, we have an interest in that regard.
So with regards to that, I understand, you know, everything you've said. But what type of consultation would the Historical Society like? Because at least my intention, in the sense I get from the council, is we're going to draft, you know, deed restrictions, covenants, MOU, whatever you wanna call it, but
Right.
then it's up to the Boy Scouts to abide by those, and so I hesitate to get into a situation where every time the Boy Scouts want to do something, we have to consult with us versus and the Historical Society, so I guess, I mean, what kind of assurances or consultation
Well,
requirements would you want?
Well, I think I had a conversation with Clint, and we had a conversation about this very thing. There's been a lot of conversations going on, I think, around the whole thing. I mean, as you prepare your deed, we'd like to have the opportunity to look at it, maybe give you some feedback on that. And from the scouts, really only, your planned use for the building. I mean, right now, it's basically being used for storage. It needs a heating plant, it needs some foundation renovations. So maybe you folks could tell us simply what are your plans for the building?
Yeah, well, and as I said, Mark said, you know, it's been managed by agreement with the town, apparently informally since like 1937. Right, and our understanding has always been that, you know, we can use it as long as we maintain it, and I know Mark and I have painted it twice and.
Put a new roof on it.
New roof, and so.
Buddy Webb did that, didn't he?
Buddy Webb.
Buddy
Yeah.
Webb,
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, that's the most important thing is to, you know, keep it. So that it's,
Yeah.
you know, not rotting, and I think, you know, we have. Assumed that because it's a historic building, you know, you can't do vinyl. Which means you have to, you know, plan to paint it every, 6 years or something, right? So I think fixing the foundation. Is the most important thing right now, so that we can get back into it, because, you know, it really has. A negative effect on the troop when we can't meet there. I mean, it's just a wonderful place, lots of memories, it's a place, you know, so, you know, that it's a benefit to the troop to recruit scouts. Sure. If we can be there. We don't have heat now, we used to. In terms of the exterior, right, there used to be a chimney. And the chimney, the town took down because they were worried it was gonna fall over. But it still exists, you know, underneath the roof. And I think that needs to be removed just for safety, and it would open up a little bit more space, so I think we should remove that. We would like to have heat. It would be great if we had a bathroom. If we can fit a bathroom into kind of in the space where the chimney goes up through, or what has been the scoutmaster office. Sure. That would make it usable, you know, for the Cub Scouts.
Yeah, so what about, I mean, heat, would you all be opposed to having a heat pump put on the outside?
No,
or something?
I think when you're upgrading buildings like this, you know, I think these are common sense things that have to be done. I think, you know, that was listed as in your old fire station minimum fix. Includes the installation of a new heating system for the building, the addition of water and sewer service, okay, with associated plumbing. And I think it mentioned bathrooms here someplace, but associated plumbing and allow the building to be used by the scouts, including meetings, office space, exhibit space, resource storage, and other useful functions. I mean, I think.
My own home, I have installed geothermal heat pumps, which is water to water.
Yep.
Which produces more than twice as much heat for the same amount of electricity.
Yeah.
And, you know, Stillwater River
This
is
is pretty close.
right there, right? We could be pulling water in from the Stillwater.
Really? Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, my system, I drilled 2 wells. 350 feet down and hit so much water we couldn't keep drilling. We were gonna go down 400 feet, but we couldn't, which was great because we pull water in out of one well. And it's like chilled water goes back down the other well. And I have 5 tons. A ton is a unit of energy, power. 60,000 BTU per hour I can pull out of the water, so. And that water is 50 degrees all year round. And if you're using air to air, this time of year, your
Yeah.
temperature's low.
Yeah.
So, you know, that can be very transparent, you wouldn't see anything
Yeah.
from the outside. That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I certainly don't think anything along those lines is going to compromise, the historical significance of the building at all.
Yeah.
And that's our interest.
I had two, well, one is a question and one is maybe an idea, but my one question is, do we have this statement? I mean, it's on the National Historic Registry. What does that provide us in terms of what features led to it getting on there? It might help tell us what we need to preserve if we have any of that information. We don't?
I thought you had talked to Isabel.
Yeah, we got
about this.
Isabel and then you had the other, it's not about the features, it's about that it's age and it hadn't had much work done
But
to
that's,
it.
but I think it is about what hasn't been altered. I think there is an assessment that was done of that building when it went on the National Registry. And in my mind, I would like, I mean, I know it doesn't come off automatically if you make changes, but knowing what the report said when it went on, like we're putting this building on because it's an example of late 18th, early 1900s fire station that still maintains a bell tower and a hose tower, and whatever's written in there would be useful to know, because those are probably the features we need to preserve. I'm guessing it's the bell tower and the hose tower, but we don't know what other feature might have been listed there. So my advice would be, we get a copy of the assessment that got it on there to begin with and see what features were highlighted. And those might be the features that we wanted
I'll see if
somebody-
we can find it. Yeah, we'll get somebody to find it.
and my last thing, and I'll be done, Leo, is just that, barring that, if we don't see anything back from that, or we can't find that, it would seem to me some kind of language that specified that, the bell tower needs to be preserved, the hose tower needs to be preserved, and then some more general language that says, as many interior and exterior architectural features from the period as possible, right? That allows some leeway, because I think you're right, something might need to be altered, but if there can be a focus on maintaining the interior and exterior architectural features from the time period that it was built as possible, I think that communicates what we're trying to say, and now it does. You're on, Leo.
When Jacob asked my thoughts, my main thing was the bell tower. And I'm not even familiar with the hose
There's two,
tower.
there's one on each end, one's the hose tower and one's the bell tower.
Getting back from
To me,
firefighting,
Yeah.
they,
Those, hang on.
the hoses all the way up to the second floor.
Right. So those are seem like the main features, but I think, and my hunch would be that if Isabel's looked and we really haven't seen anything, it probably is like, it's probably a low threshold for getting on there would be my hunch, and it has to do with the years it was, the years and the shape it's in.
Right.
That'd be my hunch, like, I wouldn't think they define walls or any specific stuff internally especially, or even externally, so. So I think it leads back to what you were just saying, that.
Something
Yeah,
general about it.
I actually contacted somebody in Washington about this when we redid the roof, because my thought was, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we put a metal roof on it? But it would have changed, the original character, which I think actually was a cedar shaped roof back in the day. And they didn't have any objection to it, but one of the things they did say was that, interior work is not restricted. It's really just trying to keep the exterior the way it was.
Yeah.
But that was 20 years ago anyway.
I can send you that language I just read out loud.
Yeah, if you could, please.
You're putting a heating plant in and you've got, you've got exterior walls that are probably real 2x4 construction, so, there's no insulation between the.
No.
At this point in time, so at some point in time, when you're thinking about these kinds of improvements, it would be ludicrous not to deal with some insulation and take care of it. So if it means modifying interior stuff, as long as it can be done in a way that maintain the historical significance. There's a lot of wainscoting in that building, a lot of wood in that building. If repairs need to be made, I would just say that, we would hope that, And it sounds like you are, very interested in maintaining that piece of
Stop
property.
by my house, I'll show you the things that I've
Right.
done. Right,
But-
so we opened up the walls, we spray foamed
Yeah,
to seal.
Yeah.
And then we put all of the finishing back on.
Yeah.
My house was 1896,
yeah.
and so it
Same
looks
concept.
from the inside and the outside as it originally did.
Yeah.
But the energy cost is about 10% of what it originally cost me
Wow.
to heat the house. It
Wow,
was that leaky,
it's impressive.
it was that bad.
I think it's
So-
tricky because, I mean, you guys know so much and obviously you are gonna take excellent care of this building. And at the same time, we're trying to draft language for in perpetuity,
Yeah,
right, when all of us
exactly,
are
yeah.
dead and gone.
What may make
so,
sense,
right,
common sense now may not.
May not be
so.
then, so, yeah. it's
I
tricky.
think what I'm hearing from everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of from a next step perspective. You're gonna try to find whatever, but in the meantime, I will. I've been taking notes, compile all of these into a list that. We will combine with any sort of historical society register language and. Send that, well. Do we want to have the attorney start working on this now, or do we wanna go?
I would,
Because I think before it goes to council, we need to have an actual MOU to see, okay.
I think the attorney needs to see it before it goes to council, or we're
Okay.
wasting time. Council's clear that they're ready to move forward. They
Yeah.
want language that works for the historical society
Okay.
and works legally, was what I heard at the last council
That's
meeting.
what
Are you
I-
guys in agreement?
yep.
Yeah, that's what
And
we
for the
all heard.
scouts.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
so,
right.
okay,
and I feel like her language that she just gave us. Is pretty much 95% of it, and
Yeah.
I don't think we wanna get too carried away at. Any crazy restrictions or and there is gonna be no. They're gonna have to check with historical society or even council when they do stuff, I don't think, it's just gonna be according to, if you do anything against the deed, then maybe that's a problem. But otherwise, you work through code just like everything else does, I believe is how that would work, so.
So the only one I had to confirm with this group was
Yep.
with start with the council, and my thought is that any future transfer to the council,
yes,
town's first option. or
And
first.
you
Yes.
also said
That's
something
right.
beyond that, it wasn't just any future transfer, what was the discussion, how did we do about? There was discussion about how to quantify if the building wasn't being maintained. At what
Oh.
point does council have an option to step in, cause that got brought up twice at the council meeting.
That's gonna be the
That's a
trickier
lawyer
one,
question,
but that's a tougher one,
Mhm,
to
right.
say that we can step in.
Right, but it's been brought up twice at
yes, yeah,
council,
you're
so I
right,
don't think we can skip over it.
I'll put a big yellow question.
I think
mark.
that's a lawyer question, like
Yeah,
what that
yeah.
language would look like if the building is in what kind of disrepair, like foundation is problems, what are we talking about, and I think.
And then you get into the other bigger question, we won't let them fix it because we feel it's affecting the historical significance.
Right, I
And
understand.
then we're saying we're taking it back because you won't do it.
Yeah, but I don't think
But we'll
that,
figure that one out.
I don't think that's the scenario we're talking about,
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
so,
and I
yeah.
think it won't happen again, like, I
Yeah.
think these folks have taken excellent care of the building for a long time and will continue to, but
Right.
it brought up twice at council, that
Yeah,
they wanted
yeah.
council to have the option to buy it back if it reached some state of disrepair.
Yep.
And how we quantify that state of disrepair is what is unclear at this point.
Yep.
So we need, I think, some.
Number of chips of paint.
No, not that, but I think we need some legal advice about
Yeah.
how you quantify that state of repair when council has an option, if
So
it's possible.
condemned would be the worst.
Hopefully
state,
not
obviously.
condemned, right?
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
we get it before then.
So it's.
Right.
Yeah, but then it's maybe more subjective before, and even that's subjective, I guess, someone, if the code condemns the building or claims it non-inhabitable.
Hmm.
That's a hard, that's kind of a hard line
Yeah.
It's close to-
versus what,
Or
versus,
there must be other
There must be something.
buildings that are owned and maintained by nonprofit organizations in the town, and so what would the town do? You know, some-
But those aren't,
It could-
they
it could be that they
didn't come from the
us.
towns,
They don't-
that's the biggest item.
I think we need a legal consult on
Yeah.
what stages
We'll find out.
before condemned are
Yep.
possible,
yeah, if there is such a.
if there is such a thing,
Yeah.
but that's the question that's come up twice at council.
No, that makes sense,
So,
okay, so I will,
But it's already sort of condemned.
Yeah.
yeah, I understand, I mean, and that's not through any
We're
fault
there.
of yours, but that's not through any fault of yours, and, so.
alright, perfect. Alright, so I will. Compile this list in a more easily readable fashion. get it to you, Clint, to get to the attorney, you were going to talk to Isabel or
Yep.
whomever. And we'll continue moving forward. And then I am going to KCI meeting tomorrow, so. Perfect.
And very exciting.
This case, it used to be the Cotton Area Council, okay, so.
Cotton Council Incorporated.
Okay.
So,
It's how they shelter their assets from Maine Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
so you've got the operations, which is
Good, yeah.
council,
Yeah.
KCI holds the assets.
understand, I was just curious.
Yep. Perfect, all right.
Good luck.
Well, you guys are welcome to stay, but we will
Good luck.
move on to other things.
Okay, I'm gonna squint in because my reading glasses are in the car.
Well, Zach's gonna put it up on that screen.
Oh, thank God.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Why don't you leave me your reading glasses, Bob?
Yeah, that's just one signal of my.
Perfect.
Nice to see you, Bob.
Good to see you.
Will you be there tomorrow? Okay, perfect. I will see you there.
Thanks for giving me doggy.
Oh, that's the ski barn.
tomorrow.
There's 65 kids.
I'm also on. Single pane windows, double pane windows,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do my best to squint
My
and
daughter
read.
did ski.
Yeah.
Do you feel if I just, how do you feel if I just run down and get my reading list and I'll be a happier camper? Cause I have notes I can't read on mine, so I'll run to the car and back.
Okay.
Feel free to start. I have some thoughts on this. I don't need to be the first one. I have questions. On this one in particular.
Okay.
That they had down there. Take a while to get warm, but you know, the heat was just whistling right through the exterior of the building, but. Good, thank you all.
Mr. Sinclair,
Good to see
always
you
a
again,
pleasure.
okay? Hey, how are you? Good, how are you? I'm good.
All right, seriously, we can start, so let's, do you wanna walk through?
Yes, well,
what
this is, I mean, and this is, you saw this last year as a council. So it's come up a little bit to talk a little bit about the debt and what it went towards and what the history is, and so we're beginning this as part of the capital improvement process.
Yep.
And so we haven't dove as deeply as maybe what your, I don't know what level, so this would be some great input, I guess, if the finance committee wanted to share. This is the beginnings of what we have, I don't know how this was explained, but on the top, you know, general fund, that's your municipal debt. Water pollution control is separate on the bottom, because that's your rate paid
Yep.
debt. So you have two debts combined, if you look at those the third column over, you could add it up, you got about 9.7 million, as you see in yellow. Another 740 and a couple lease purchases that you have. And then if you add it into the water pollution, you're talking about 17 million total in debt for the town, and I'm working with a capital improvement plan, I mean, there's rules, water, schools, water, sewer, utilities, solar, all that debt is counted to the statutory debt rules, there's a statutory debt rule in Maine.
You said?
It is not, it's municipal debt does not account water, sewer, schools, none of that, that's a completely separate set of categories that are governed independently. That being said, it's not what's affordable, the law says that you can have 7.5% of your total community valuation at the municipal return. We're worth about 700 million, about just under 50 million is your debt capacity. You wouldn't wanna be at 50 million.
No.
No community really wants to max out their debt capacity. And then above that, you can do 10% for schools, you can do so much for, but for us, you know, and I'm working on the history, I don't know what this part of Zach and I wanna go back a few years. Kind of maybe try to find what one of your largest debt load years were and what's typical of what you carry. You know, what I would say right now is this is just the beginnings of, you know, of understanding that we can go through, I mean, some of the conversations were. What did you borrow on each of these loans and were they completed? I will say with the research we've done, the only thing you didn't do was in the, I believe it was in the 20, I gotta look at the year's not there. I think it's the USB Series B. No, that's the refunded. Anyways, there was, at one point, you're gonna do a network improvement, there was some money, but you didn't do it. And you've reallocated that to road work. It just, and again, what roads you did it to, and we are working with some changes of that, but I think, can you click the next slide, Zach?
Can I just ask on this?
on this one, I mean.
I have questions on this
Yeah.
one still.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, then we'll wait.
yeah,
Mine's gonna be simpler than yours, I
well,
think.
I just shot one back earlier, but I know it was late. This is 2023. can we just, for starters, can we get an updated version of this?
That's what we're working on for the capital improvement plan. I didn't intend to present the finance committee separate, but I can if that's what you guys want.
I mean, I would like to see that, and I guess a broader question is, without, you're talking about doing research and finding this stuff out, to me, that says we're not actively like managing to this, or like, this just feels like something that should be like our other documents, something that doesn't, like, that's a standard report that you guys are looking at.
That's what we're building it into. That's what I wanted in the
Coming
capital
in the
plan.
capital plan.
I want it in there so that it's every year, it's updated
Standard.
annually, you see it. You could go to last year's and see what's gone, what stayed, what was added.
Understood, but so it seems like a glaring hole that it's not.
Well, you did some refinancing. That's the hard part.
I know, but the fact that we're looking at 2023 means that we're not actively keeping this up. And so like was this generated because a council person asked for it, boom, there it is, never touch it again, never update it, never manage, never use it to track where
No.
we're
It's
at?
not come from
We
the budget
have it.
binder last year. We had
This
one
we've
from the
got a
budget
book
binder
that's-
last year.
Yeah, there's a capital, there's your bonding book. I mean, it's huge. It tells you all the history. Staff knows it. The issue is putting it together in a summary that's communicable for the community and the staff council.
And
So
for
this was,
staff.
I think, their attempt at that.
Okay, I mean,
And I would expect that if we were to add, before we even take on new, I mean.
Right.
Any new debt, we gotta know what we have, so I mean, there's nothing been added to this, it's only
And
gone.
there has nothing been added that in the last 2 years on bond debt. That is correct, right, Leo, in the time.
You haven't taken a bond since 20.
no bond.
The newest thing on this sheet is that CWSRF loan towards the bottom there for
Yeah.
WPCF, that's probably the most recent one.
Okay.
Hmm.
And, okay, so I agree with Leo that, it's great that staff knows it, but it is fundamentally one of council's core responsibilities to manage money well. So we need a version every year, so it's perfect that you guys are
So
building
this
that for us.
information all
Yeah.
comes from the annual audit as well.
Yeah.
That's where I pulled all of this from, I put the spreadsheet together and everything. So once our 2024 audit is done, I'm letting the auditors do a little heavy lifting, so I can let them do the hard part, and then I'll put another report together for this.
Yeah, cause this is the most recent from an audited standpoint.
Yeah.
Right, and so on this, the things that would be helpful to me as a counselor that I don't see here, when you look at the annual payment column, there's no total down in the yellow line.
Mhm.
And it would be very helpful to see the annual payment, if that's something that would be an easy fix.
Alright.
Because as a, for me, I'm looking at this and I realize we're a year and a half further down the road, but if I were back at the time period when this was the relevant figures, I'd be looking and going, okay, these bonds are gonna expire in 2024.
Mhm.
This annual payment amount, what percent of our annual payment amount is that? And I did that math for myself, and it's like a third actually of our annual payment amount that was disappearing in 2024. Right, and that figure to me is relevant because when we look at bonding out again, from a taxpayer perspective, your taxes are going down when those bonds are expiring. If we take out new ones for a similar payment amount, they're staying stable, and if we take out ones for a bigger payment amount, they are going up. And those are the things that I think the taxpayers are gonna want us to be aware of.
Yeah,
So-
I wanna hear the rest of your list and then I wanna show you something.
Okay,
So
that's
start
great.
with
So that was my first one. I also think it might have been mentioned when I stepped out to get my glasses, but if it were possible on this document to see the year that these were each taken out, not just their due date
Originated.
and
Issue.
issue date, and also the original amount that they were issued for.
Principal or both?
I would like to, wait, wouldn't they be
The
issued just
bond.
for principal, the
It
bond?
would be the principal, but you have the amortization. We can show you what.
Okay,
we pay.
that's fine. For me, it would be helpful to have that data also, so I have some
Sure.
sense as these are coming down in time, where they are in their, it's great to know it expires in 2041, but I have no idea if that was a 20-year bond or it's, 15 or whatever. So, those are the three things, and for me, the top one would actually be just tallying the annual payment, which I can do, but it's a pain in the butt to do it every
For me
time.
to add.
So, those are my three, I'm done.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Two more.
Yep.
In addition, can you also put in what the interest rate is?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
And I would like to see, you've got purpose, I'm.
Projects.
Yeah, can you tie that to where it is in the budget?
We're working on it.
What do you mean we're in the budget?
Like, is that these aren't all, I guess,
All these come out of your debt service payments, except for wastewater, because it's an enterprise, we break that into them.
so
That's
library
debt.
construction. To me, I get that's debt services, so there's probably not a clean way to show what that's attributed to within our budget, like that's attributed to the library, right? And a lot of it's public works.
Yep.
Most of it's probably public works.
Yep.
Yep.
TIF parking, I don't know what that is, but, so is that might not be a clean, that maybe there's no clean way to do that.
So are
Work on it.
you asking, and if you are, I don't know as I agree with it, but are you asking that like the debt service for the library bond be included in their individual budget?
I mean,
I think he's asking just where it is included right now,
It's part of the debt.
Yes,
That's what I
schedule,
think, it's
yeah.
all there.
so it's, right, so it's part of the
Yeah,
debt,
that's
but
what
I'm interested in what it's tied, like where it is being tied to, yeah. But
I don't know if that's,
I know, they
mean,
could,
Yeah, in the budget, there's a debt and other section, and that's where all of our debt payments get listed out each fiscal year
Yeah.
for principal and interest.
there's a debt and other, but it, like that says library, so I would know it is connected library, and that, like, that, maybe that's too convoluted to try to do that, so, but here's I guess a
Well,
question.
we're working through that, I don't know where we'll end up on
Okay.
that, but that's part of what we're working.
and I don't necessarily think the debt for each bond should be tied into the budget of each department, because that, I understand, you know, if this were a private entity, making sure each department was able to, you know, cover its own debt service would be helpful, but where this is municipal government, I mean, I think part of municipal government is overall taking, you know, using money, taking from here to put over here, et cetera, so.
But you really don't do that, though, I mean, you allocate everything you're spending to a department or to an area, so. I mean, I think there is value to understanding when we look at the big picture, we borrow, you know, if probably, like I said, 80% of this is probably public works type stuff, infrastructure stuff. But knowing that, I don't think is a bad thing, but it's maybe not worth it if it's that convoluted, but I don't, so if we, you know. If we build a new public works, if we build, well, we did build, that's into public works building, if we build a new public safety building. I think it's good to understand that we spent that money on the public safety building.
We're saying what department, we're beginning to place the ownership
Yeah.
of where the debt belongs
Yeah.
in the town. To say it's in Department 12,
Yeah,
no,
right.
but we're starting to put everything,
That's the
so
level.
I wanna
think
start
we're
moving, yeah,
talking
as we move through some of the other stuff we're doing, we're starting to make that progression.
about. Okay, that's
And as you
great.
dive a little bit more into the details of the budget, each one interest payment does have a description in there, it says, you know, like, this will be for. You know, matching up to those purposes on there, it'll say, you know, public works infrastructure, principal, interest, and it breaks it right out that way.
But for like equipment, you're gonna see a list that may not be bonded, but it's gonna say that we gotta buy a dump truck from Public Works. It's going to say dump truck, Public Works, amount, year anticipated,
Yeah,
how do we fund it, you know, that's where we're moving towards. So you'd be able to search fire, police, Public Works, wastewater, and a little bit rec, and we're kind of and again, this is a building. This is CIP year one, and we're gonna add to it each year, but we're trying to really build it and, I mean, not to scare us, but I'm 10 pages in and I've finished wastewater. So we're working, there's a lot of information I wanna get out to you, and we're reframing it, because that 10's probably gonna become 4. And like 6 of it's gonna become attachments,
Yeah.
and we're gonna say see attachment A, see attachment B, but we gotta build it first and see where we end up.
So have all of these funds have all the funds that we have bonded out been spent? Because wasn't that some of the confusion around right before Christmas, we had a big discussion, so.
As of today, I believe we're 100% encumbered. That's what I'm
100%
saying.
encumbered is
You've got a
municipal
couple-
language for we spent everything we borrowed.
We have, it's just that
It's
two of them
allocated.
we're waiting for the bill, yeah, we're
It's
waiting. for the bill.
allocated, but either way, we don't have an extra, okay,
Yep.
No
so
unencumbered funds.
thank you.
Correct.
and this gets, so this, I tie everything back to this summary, and when I look at this that you gave us. We had 375,000 basically free up
Yep,
of debt service.
Yeah.
In our budget from 24 to 25, it said there's a difference in our debt service minus 53,000.
Yeah, I know. so-
Why is that why does that say 53,000? And but we know 375 came off.
Because three things, one, you had no public works director who oversaw the whole thing, brand new. Your town manager also brand new, and your finance director was in his first year working on those. You had unaudited numbers, so those were the estimates last spring as to where they thought they were.
Mhm.
When they go through the audit process, we give more detail, this is why.
Yeah.
If you want more information, we give it to you sooner, things change, so after we gave you all the information. Like we're supposed to, the finance department comes through all our payments, all our debts, where's money going, and we found there was more monies encumbered in certain places than what we had originally thought, so we updated these spreadsheets, that's why I came to you in December and said, we gotta fix this.
So we did not in fact have a difference of 53, we had a difference of this 300 and whatever that. It's
I don't
about-
think that 375 is coincidental, isn't it, Zach?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a coincidental 375, it's not that's not what, the number we were coming to that we're off by happened to be 375. It's not that 375. It's just,
What is
it's,
that?
Well, it's actually slightly more than
It's
375,
375,
if you add all that stuff up, yeah. That one comes out to.
But it's not like we paid off any
That's-
debt last year,
no,
so we don't,
you made your
Yes.
payment.
We did.
yes, we didn't pay off any notes last
Yeah,
year.
we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
We did.
yes.
We did, that's what we're
All
trying
of
to say,
these.
the 375 of those ones that are 2024, right above the yellow.
That was the final year payment,
The
and you
three-
reduced your debt service payments by that in your budget.
By about 375,000.
Yeah.
Right, but then in
But
here
here
we
it
said
doesn't
it's
show us
53,
that, that's what he's saying. So
Oh.
you're saying it was because that hadn't been, we didn't have that information yet when this page came out.
So
see that.
in the past fiscal year,
one?
we actually ended up paying off kind of those three notes,
those
those,
three right
the
there.
GSB
Yes.
14 bonds, yep,
In
okay.
2024. FY 2024, we paid.
So then we essentially freed up that.
We did,
In theory, but it says it says a delta of 53
but something
When it-
then, yeah,
should have.
yeah.
When, I mean, this was known that it was retiring,
Yeah.
so that's a,
And part of it that tempers it a little bit too on that gain is that there are, I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but there are some that started. There were some that we were just paying
Is
interest
this
on, and
just-
some have started their principal
Principal
payments.
as well, yeah.
And so that kind of offsets
Is it
that.
a timing issue?
Right.
I think it's, well, no,
Did
so
you
the
guys
fifth,
hear what Zach just said down
Yeah.
here? He was saying part of it is that some of our other payments were interest only to a certain point and only began principal payment recently.
Mhm.
So that offset some of that 375. A lot of times bonds are built that way, right? So that when you know you're gonna have some disappearing, you build your others so that they're gonna ramp up when those disappear. So that's what you're saying, correct, Zach?
Yes.
Okay.
and again, but again, when you're looking, the 53 is the difference of the prior year's budget to what was proposed in 25. It was 53,000. You did retire a lot more debt, I don't know, but again, timing wise, you might have realized some of that 375 because it says due date 2024. 2024 is 2 fiscal years, it could have been May 24 and July 24, so I'd have to look these up for the exact due dates.
So that makes
This is when
sense.
they retired, and that may not even be the payment date, we may make a payment on a May debt.
Right,
So
Yeah.
this is why we're rebuilding from scratch to
Yeah.
figure out when the dates were.
Yeah.
You may have a timing issue to fiscal year on there,
Yeah.
but you
that
did
makes sense.
retire in 2024, 375.5.
so maybe that's something next month you guys could and give us more of an update on like what is figured out.
You're gonna get more than
Or,
enough
yeah.
here, cause the
Yeah.
capital plan's gonna really dig into this.
In
Really,
March
really.
though, right? So
Well,
maybe this
I'm-
group could get more of an update in February on where you're at with what you figured out.
yeah,
about
I'd
that.
love to see the next 2 years.
So can we flip ahead one?
Yeah.
Who's got this spreadsheet? Cody, you there?
Yeah, Cody's running it.
I need the next attachment.
Mitch is running, so maybe it's Mitch.
No,
It's the other, it's a spreadsheet, it's the other tab.
I don't know that I sent him that.
Oh, you didn't
We
send
didn't
them
get
that
a
one?
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got these, the.
Let me share it
revenue and
with him real
expense.
quick, I've got it
Are we
open.
on to revenue and expense yet?
I just wanna show that other tab.
Hey Zach, did I just get the one?
Yep, I just shared a spreadsheet with you, Cody.
All right, I'll download. Hang on.
Go to tab 2. Because this, and it's not what's going into this capital improvement plan, but it's gonna start to show you what you all just asked questions about.
Thanks, Clint.
Yeah,
Is it this one? Or no? No. That's one I had up.
that's the, that's
Wait.
summary by year, that's it. So,
Okay.
so these on the left, you see all the ones that were on the other page.
Yeah.
So this is where I carried out what your payment is by
By
year.
yeah.
So if you scroll to the right a little bit on us, and you see down at the bottom, as you look in 2025, there's your total payment, 973, 928, 901.
Mhm.
So when you said, what do you pay each year? We're actually moving towards the point where I'm gonna show you, because if you move ahead to 2032, we got a window. We're gonna lose a couple $100,000 of debt service payments. And then the next window we won't see is until 2037.
Yeah.
And then we do another retirement of debt service, and then the big one's 2040. So the good news is you're retiring debt and we have opportunities. The bad news is the big opportunity you're not hitting till 2040.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure out capacity to afford projects between now and 2040. Cause I could tell you, from my assessment, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
And furthermore, you've already queued up projects that we gotta borrow for already, so where are we gonna fit them in and when? And how? The good news is you have capacity for a lot of them,
So this is.
it's just how you view your capacities.
So, right there.
Yeah.
We, as a council, should have seen this
That's what I'm,
before we said yes to a library, before we say yes to anything else, and we couldn't, we didn't. And, you know, we had an interim town manager, but this is the due diligence that council is responsible for, and this is, you, again, I can say it 100 times, you've been here. You're not new anymore, Clint, this should have, no, just kidding.
Now you really see.
No, I'm not pointing this at you at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
No.
I'm pointing this at council for
Yeah.
not knowing this
Yeah.
and not learning this. Because now there's not a gap to fill, and so that means more.
The good news is last year you did retire 300,000 and you
Well-
haven't, in theory, allocated it yet, and I'm trying to figure out
You'll
how
figure
much
it
of that
Okay.
is still available for allocation, did you put some into reserves? You are underfunding reserves, that's a different part of this conversation, but it is part of your capital plan. And that's the other piece we're working on is how much, and again, I've done a lot on this. You got a lot to see, but we have a lot of things we need to do every year. For example, buy a cruiser or two, 1.5 to be exact every
Yeah.
year for 6 years. Is what you should be buying to maintain what you own. You currently fund one. And then every 3 years you fund a second, or sometimes you fund 2 in a row, or. So we're getting into that whole conversation, the ladder truck. That's something you've needed to do, it's due, and there's no money for it. You've saved up under $1,000 to buy a ladder truck. So we're gonna figure that one out.
Are those like $2,000 now?
2, 3 grand.
So is it
Plus
possible,
$1.5 million.
I guess, I'm just looking at the time and I'm just wondering, like, is it possible that we return to this next month
Yeah.
with any further progress? And could we look at the expense report before our last 10 on, because I have questions on understanding this also.
Yep, go for it.
That's good, because we wanted to get to that, so let's go to the
Okay.
expense report.
Thanks.
We've got that.
I'm pulling it up,
Forward that one to Cody.
You didn't?
Sarah, you
I
got
did,
your,
I forwarded that email.
so why
to
don't
him.
you just start getting the interest of time?
Okay, so my first question is just sort of walking myself through this expense report. There were a lot of categories where wages and benefits, I mean, we're 6 months into the year, so we're expecting numbers around 50%.
Mhm.
And there were quite a few of these lines where we're like at 35%, and I was wanting a little bit of understanding of why. So like IT wages and benefits are showing at like 27%, right? There's many of these, I could go through and label each department, but why is that? And I'm not even sure in some of these who we're paying wages and benefits to, like not names, but what positions, because I thought our IT was fully contracted out, and so I'm a little confused, like even
So wages and benefits would have been Pete Yuskevich.
when he was here, okay, and
he's
then he left,
And now we
okay,
brought Cody in, so we've got a gap.
perfect, so that's a gap on that one.
So those are the one, that's what, part of what I told Zach, I've done the 6-month review.
Yeah.
And first year in, but I was not alarmed by any of the percentages, I was able to go through them myself by department and
Yeah.
say, that makes sense, I know why we're at, over, or under.
Okay,
And and it's like some of the capital and debt service payments will look like we're way over 50%. Or majority of the payments are in the fall. So
right.
we are over, because the timing is.
So that was my question, like, this report is great, but it would be more useful for me if it had a small notation for ones that are off by more than whatever, 10% from where it seems like they should be. You know, just what you're saying, like vacant position for a number of months, debt payment actually comes due on this month, something short. Because otherwise, in our council role, whoever the counselors are, we don't know that, and we're just looking going, what, why? Why is that one, why is that one? So I'm assuming you guys are doing that, but a tiny column.
Do we do those by
Limitations.
department, or, because it would be easier if it was a departmental explanation rather than.
Whatever it matches these things,
I
yeah.
would
don't-
say
yeah.
20 15 or 20% versus a note for every 10, just because
I
I think.
don't need it, I mean, I guess if a department is off by more than 10% at a 6-month mark, I'm curious why, but if you like 15, I'm good with 15, I would like some notation, so when there's something that feels off, we don't spend a lot of time in here having to hash through it, that we just got those notations by email and we
I
already
think
know.
10% and should we do this every month or every quarter?
I
Every
think-
quarter would be fine with me, do you?
I
want
think
every month?
10% at the quarters is a really good way to look at your departments, and that's a good report to
10% of
prepare.
the quarters, yeah,
Would
So
that
if you
work
were,
for
you know, if we're at 85 and it's 3/4 in, that's 10%
yeah,
off
if we
from
do
75.
it every quarter, which is 3 months instead of 1. In theory, I think finance, we should be looking at the printouts every.
We should look at them every.
You're gonna look
month.
at them every month.
But
every
Every
we're gonna
quarter,
get-
we'll give a, staff will spend the time to do that summary of why the variances are there.
Okay.
Does that sound okay? I
that's-
think some explanation would be really,
Yeah.
really helpful, and
This is part
then,
of what, Zach, they're getting ahead of us. They're
oh, you
reading
guys
our
are
mind.
great,
They're reading,
And then-
well, no, we wanted to ask this stuff.
okay.
Yeah, we did.
And then when you jump way closer to the end, when we get to like 65, which is the capital section.
Mhm.
So these all look very low. So I'm assuming again, that's some simple explanation. Why is that? Do we just not,
Pay it in February.
we do all this work all year, but we don't actually, like, pay it until much later? How does this work?
That was one of the ones we're catching up on the transfers as well, right, Zach?
Yes.
Cause we're trying to, and we wanted to talk audit before we leave, which plays
Okay.
into this, but yeah.
And then my biggest one of all was when I looked at line 70 debt service and other is like $10 million. And it doesn't
That's
tell
where
me what
the
other
county
In
is.
school.
The
like-
county
Okay,
has
so
it in there.
but again, just helpful for, a notation, like this is county and school, right? I'm like, what is this? Okay,
Yeah.
I had the exact same.
yeah, and then.
It was the
Right.
same one you, I'm like,
Right.
Zach, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
Yes.
The reason I
That's
did
what
that
my
is 'cause
salary
I
is.
signed the
Yeah.
warrants. or
Okay.
whatever, so.
Yeah,
Hey, Clint,
yes.
this is Mitch. I just want to remind you that we've got to flip over to the council
Yeah.
meeting on the same
3
Zoom
minutes.
account.
I have two
Okay.
more questions we can hold till next month if you want. I'm looking at reserve and grant and special revenue funds. Grant and special revenue funds is 90. I guess I'm at a loss as to why we have expenses associated with grants. Like, why does it say that we have expenses of 700,000 for the American Rescue Plan Act? I would think that would be the grant we were receiving, not money that we are, so I'm confused. This
I have
confuses
some
me.
confusion as well with.
So maybe we
how
can
that's-
return to
and it
these
could just
two.
be my own accounting,
Right.
lack of accounting knowledge,
But if we could return
was
to
confused
85 and 90 and just explain those to me a little bit next month, I would appreciate that.
break them out into
Yeah.
different things.
Thank you.
So just the 1 minute version here, with the reports you have, I think we're on the right track. Zach and I have some ideas on tax collections. We're gonna try to bring those next month as well, to start to get a very routine, these are the reports you will always get. If you're comfy with that, we're also working on the agendas, I'll share with the council as well tonight, but with the committee agendas, it's the things that you referred, and then it's gonna be your monthly financials.
Yeah.
And then every quarter we'll mention that, but we're gonna get to a more detailed agenda. If you wanna add things, it's your job to tell us, I'll tell that to the whole council, but the chair of the committee is responsible for items we would not know about.
Okay.
Okay, is that?
I had a handful of similar questions on the revenue statement, like capital interest reserved, just to help me understand that, because it just seemed backwards, upside down, the way it was reporting grants and special revenues. It looked to me like we are interest earnings, we're doing awesome, it looks like, and I'm just wondering, are we gonna get another 40% on that? And so is that a?
Why don't we do a 6-month attempt at a summary for
For
you
next
for the next
Yeah,
meeting,
that'd be
and then
perfect.
we can
Yeah.
see how that goes in comparison.
Yeah.
You want it for revenues and expenses, and we'll do
Yes.
it on both. And I think I got an idea what you're looking for.
Yeah. Sounds great. The only other thing I brought was just, I'm not clear if this page is in our budget binder request documents that council has been wanting this to go out, so.
It should be.
To show.
But I'm not sure if is
I
this,
believe so, I've seen that one before.
so is this definitely coming in the budget binder? And if not, let's talk about it next month, but if.
If that's
it's
Excel,
coming-
there's a new valuation,
Yeah.
that might change.
I believe I have that, so I can definitely make sure that it makes it even.
Oh, yeah, I know something, yeah.
We want
we'll do
something,
like this.
we want it
And
pretty
updated to current value.
updated to current valuation in the town.
Yeah.
This, I think, is important that we have it at the beginning of the budget process. We typically have gotten it, but often not until late, and I think it's better for the public if it's available.
Yeah, we can do that.
Does that sound good?
We gotta run on it.
Okay, let's do it.
Roll.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
There's 3 of us here, they're not gonna start without.